Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Friday is Bellator 297, Vadim Nemkov versus Yoel Romero, and this card is absolutely stacked, and I am going to give you a breakdown and prediction for the top 3 fights on the card. And if you guys want more Bellator predictions, I've done them in the past. Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Starting off with the featured fight on the main card, Corey Anderson versus Phil Davis. Corey Anderson, 16-6, 33 years old, 6'3", with a 77.5-inch reach. Phil Davis, 24-6, 38 years old, 6'2", with a 78-inch reach. So virtually the same height, virtually the same reach. Experience advantage for Phil Davis, but not really by much. And a massive youth advantage, a 5-year youth advantage for Corey Anderson. Both former UFC fighters. Phil Davis, a former Bellator light heavyweight champion. I believe it was back in 2016. He beat Liam McGeary. You look at their most recent fights. For Corey Anderson, heartbreaking last 2 Bellator fights. He fought Vadim Nemkov, lost via decision, got dominated in his last fight, got outstruck, his takedowns were getting stuff, and he was getting outstruck by Vadim Nemkov. But the reason it was so heartbreaking was because that fight was 6 months ago. But the fight before that, he also fought Vadim Nemkov. And this was in the finals, and this was for $1 million, and this was also for the Bellator light heavyweight title. And he was winning this fight. He was dominating with his wrestling. And as he's ground and pounding, he's kind of like bringing his body down with the ground and pound. There's a head clash on the ground. It opens up a cut on Vadim Nemkov. Corey Anderson's actually the fighter that draws attention to it. The ref stops the fight. It ends up ending the fight, and it ends up being a no contest. So they push the fight. They rematch, 6 months down the line after that, or 7 months down the line after that. And then he loses. Vadim Nemkov makes the necessary adjustments to be able to go out there, have a game plan, stuff Corey Anderson's takedowns, and outstruck him on the feet. So Corey Anderson, with that head clash, not only did he lose the Bellator title, he also lost $1 million because he would have won the tournament. So super unfortunate. Before that, he KO'd Ryan Bader. You look at Phil Davis. His last fight was against Julius Anglickas. He won via decision. His last fight before that was a split decision win over Yoel Romero. When I look at this fight, I honestly see very similar fighters. There's very small differences in these two. Both former UFC fighters. Corey Anderson went out there and brutally KO'd Johnny Walker and was on his way to a title shot when Jan Blachowicz brutally KO'd him on his way to become light heavyweight champion. UFC should have kept both these guys. I know Phil Davis is kind of on the decline now and older, but at the time they released him, both these guys were great additions to like the top 15 of the light heavyweight division and kind of measuring sticks for up-and-coming talent. A lot of people thought Johnny Walker was going to be a future champion. They match him up with Corey Anderson at UFC 254 or 244. I was actually there live. Corey Anderson KOs him in the first round. But Corey Anderson's skill set, he's a wrestler who has decent striking and decent power, and he's still evolving a little bit, not much. You have Phil Davis, who he's primarily a wrestler, and when he does strike, he's primarily kick heavy. His hands aren't that good. He doesn't have much power in his hands. He doesn't finish a lot of fights. If he does, usually it's like by submission on the ground. He has a Kimura win over Alexander Gustafsson back in the day. And honestly, when I look at this fight, I think this is going to be primarily standing. I don't think Phil Davis is going to be able to out-grapple Corey Anderson. I don't think Corey Anderson can out-grapple Phil Davis. So when I look at the striking, I think Corey Anderson has the edge in striking. I think he has more power. I think he has better hands. And I think I'm going to predict Corey Anderson via decision. And honestly, I could see Corey Anderson stopping Phil Davis. Phil Davis is very durable. It's very rare that he gets finished. But Corey Anderson's got decent power, and I think he's got a massive striking advantage in terms of just hands. Phil Davis has very good kicks, but he's getting older. He's slowing down. He's 38 years old. I think he's going to be shooting in on takedowns. Corey Anderson's going to defend him. He's going to be landing with his hands on the feet, and I just think he's going to outstrike him. And I think Corey Anderson's going to win this fight 30-27 decision, and Corey Anderson kind of makes, a second run at the Bellator light heavyweight title. Moving up on the card, the co-main event, Sergio Pettis versus Patricio Pitbull. Patricio Pitbull attempting to become the first 3-weight champion in Bellator. He's already a 2-weight champion. He was the Bellator lightweight champion. He relinquished that belt, and he is the current Bellator featherweight champion. Okay, you look at Sergio Pettis, 22-5, 29 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach. You look at Patricio Pitbull, 35-5, 35 years old, 5'6", with a 65.5-inch reach. So a 3.5-inch reach advantage for Sergio Pettis and a 6-year youth advantage for Sergio Pettis. You look at Sergio Pettis' last fight was against Kyoji Horiguchi. He's been out with an injury since then. That was a year and a half ago almost. And Kyoji Horiguchi was winning the fight cleanly. He was out striking him. He was out grappling him. And in the 5th round, Sergio Pettis throws a head kick. Kyoji Horiguchi ducks under it, and Pettis uses the momentum to throw a spinning back kick and brutally sleep Kyoji Horiguchi to win the bantamweight title. You look at the fight before that, he has a decision win over Juan Archuleta, so he's fought decent competition. You look at Patricio Pitbull, he's been around forever. He is one of the elite in Bellator. He would be a top 10 featherweight in the UFC. Honestly, I wish he was in the UFC for a long time now. You look at his last fight, it was against a Ryzen fighter whose name I cannot pronounce. The fight before that, he fought Adam Borsch. This was a fight where he pretty much dominated. I think he might have lost one round. Borsch was just throwing flying knees all fight and getting taken down. He hurt Pitbull a couple times in this fight, but for the most part, Patricio Pitbull was able to take him down, beat him up, land good shots on the feet, and pretty much dominantly won this fight. You go back to the fight before that, a win over AJ McKee, which is a very solid win. He won via decision. This was a razor close fight, could have won either way. And then his last loss, and this is his only loss in the last few years, was against AJ McKee about 2 years ago. He got hurt on the feet and then guillotined by AJ McKee, but he avenged that loss. And he also has a KO victory over Michael Chandler, which a lot of people don't even realize because a lot of people didn't start following Michael Chandler until he went to the UFC, when Michael Chandler was in Bellator for a while having crazy fights. When I look at this fight, I see Sergio Pettis, who wants to keep the fight standing, who has dynamic striking, who has good power, who has very good kicks. And then I see Patricio Pitbull with an experience advantage, been around forever, a little bit older, 35 years old, but still I don't think he's really regressing just yet. And I think he has more power. I think he has better leg kicks. I think he'll be chopping the legs of Sergio Pettis. And I also think he has a grappling advantage. But I do wonder, this is the first time we're seeing him at bantamweight. How is he going to look with the weight cut? We saw what TJ Dillashaw did a couple years ago. He went down to flyweight to fight Henry Cejudo, and he got hurt like 3 times in the fight and eventually TKO'd. So I think it's a big question mark. How does the weight cut affect him? He's talking about if he wins this fight, he might go down to flyweight to try to win a flyweight belt, which is just absolutely crazy to me. But he's never been a massive featherweight, and even going up to lightweight and winning the belt was crazy because he was kind of undersized there as well. So I don't think bantamweight is like a massive drop for him. But for my official prediction for Sergio Pettis versus Patricio Pitbull, I'm going to go Patricio Pitbull via decision. I don't see him stopping Sergio Pettis, but I think Pitbull's going to use the grappling in this fight. I think he's going to be very grappling heavy. He's going to kind of have the same game plan as Kyoji Horiguchi. I could see one of these guys getting a KO, but they're both so durable. And I just don't see, unless Sergio Pettis lands one of those flashy techniques, which he's going to be looking for in this fight for sure. And he's going to be trying to keep the distance, and he's going to be trying to use the kicks. But Pitbull is so good, and even in his last fight, he was catching flying knees and taking Adam Borge down. And he was catching kicks and taking Adam Borge down. I think he's going to be doing the same thing against Sergio Pettis. And Sergio Pettis, his striking is heavily reliant on his kicking game, and his hands aren't as good. Even though he has decent hands, his hands aren't as good. I think Pettis has a speed advantage. I think they both got good cardio. They both can go 5 rounds. But I think Patricio Pitbull just a little bit more well-rounded. And unless Pettis can stuff the takedown, I think Patricio Pitbull wins this fight via decision. I think it's going to be a close fight. I'm going to say 3-2 Patricio Pitbull. Moving on to the main event, we have Vadim Nemkov versus Yoel Romero. You look at Vadim Nemkov, he is the Bellator light heavyweight champion. He's 16-2, 30 years old, 6 foot tall with a 76-inch reach. You look at Yoel Romero, 15-6, which is crazy because Yoel Romero's been around forever, but he got a late start in MMA. 46 years old, 6 foot tall with a 73.5-inch reach. So a 2.5-inch reach advantage for Vadim Nemkov and a 16-year youth advantage for Vadim Nemkov. That is absolute insanity. You look at Vadim Nemkov's last 2 fights. He beat Corey Anderson, stuffed the takedowns, outstruck him. We talked about that earlier in the video. The fight before that, he was losing to Corey Anderson, getting out-wrestled, and there was an accidental clash of heads. Fight was stopped, no contest. He has a Kimura win over Julius Anglickas. He has a win over Phil Davis, unanimous decision win over Phil Davis, and he also has a head kick KO win over Ryan Bader. You look at Yoel Romero, former UFC fighter, former UFC title challenger. His last fight was against Melvin Manhoef, absolutely brutalized him, KO'd him in full mount. I don't know why Bellator put that fight together. That's an absolute embarrassment to the sport. Fight before that against Alex Pelosi, KO'd him as well. Fight before that was against Phil Davis. He lost via split decision. Kind of an uneventful fight. Phil Davis just kind of, used his kicks from the outside and actually used his wrestling against Yoel Romero as well. Yoel Romero said he thought it was 5 rounds and not 3 rounds. Fight before that was that absolute stinker against Israel Adesanya, where nobody really threw anything and they just stared at each other. And then the fight before that was that crazy fight against Paulo Costa. How was that almost 4 years ago? How was that almost 4 years ago? That is crazy. I actually thought Yoel Romero won that fight. Very close. I thought Yoel Romero won the fight. It was not a robbery. When I look at this fight and I look at their skill sets, I see Yoel Romero, who has very good wrestling but refuses to use it. He's been like that his entire career. Has super explosive power, but he's starting to slow down, and he's 46 years old. That is absolute insanity. So Yoel Romero's path to win this fight is really, wait for his moments, explode with flying knees, explode with big power punches, and look for a KO. Vadim Nemkov is just so well-rounded, has good defensive grappling. He showed he even shorted up in the rematch against Corey Anderson. Very good striking, both hands and kicks. And also very good stamina. He's been 5 rounds multiple times, and he has finishing ability. My official prediction for this fight, I'm going Vadim Nemkov via decision. Honestly, there's going to be a time that Yoel Romero gets put out cold. And I thought about predicting Vadim Nemkov via finish, but I just can't see him finishing Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero, for some reason, the shots he was eating from Paulo Costa, I know that was 4 years ago, but that head kick, there's that one picture of that head kick that Paulo Costa lands right on the chin of Yoel Romero. Insanity that he ate it. And maybe it's something to do with his neck. His neck is so muscular. There's some people who have speculated about that for years. He's just impossible to rock. And Vadim Nemkov is not like an Anthony Rumble Johnson, where he's going to go out there, RIP by the way, where he's going to go out there and throw these crazy bombs. I'm so sad. Now I'm just thinking, we never got to see Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Yoel Romero. That was booked like a year and a half ago or so, or 2 years ago. But anyway, Vadim Nemkov doesn't have the crazy power punches, but he has decent power. But I think what he's going to do is he's going to outstrike Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero is going to have these flurries where he blitzes forward and throws these crazy combinations and looks for these flying knees and these massive leaping punches. And I could see him getting countered by Vadim Nemkov, but I don't see Yoel Romero using the wrestling. If he uses the wrestling, but he never does it, he could potentially win this fight. He could take down Vadim Nemkov and beat him up on the ground. He has the nastiest ground and pound elbows. We saw him brutally KO Lyoto Machida a few years back. That was probably even more than a few years back. I don't remember what year that was. But I think Vadim Nemkov's going to use his footwork, kind of stay on the outside, use combinations, outstrike Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero's going to be blitzing forward, looking for big shots. But then as the fight goes on, Yoel Romero starts to slow down a little bit. And I think Vadim Nemkov in the 4th and 5th round is going to kind of take over the fight. They're going to be clear rounds for him. I think it's going to start off slow. I think Vadim Nemkov's going to be very patient early because he doesn't want to get caught with, one of those crazy blitzes moving forward from Yoel Romero. A lot of people are worried about the power of Yoel Romero. But I think as the fight goes on, he's going to settle in, get a little bit more comfortable, start using his combinations, using his footwork, circling around the cage, and just outstriking Yoel Romero to a decision. And honestly, I could see a 4th or 5th round TKO. But it's just impossible for me to pick Yoel Romero to get TKO'd. And for Yoel Romero, I don't think he wins this fight unless he gets a crazy, flashy finish, flying knee KO, and finishes Vadim Nemkov. I don't think that's super likely by any means. So I'm going Vadim Nemkov via decision. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who are you picking in these fights? I'm probably going to do a live stream for Bellator 297. This is a great card. I think these will be exciting fights. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.